Hi, I'm Rob Vischer. Welcome to my storytelling podcast, God Out Loud. With every new episode, you'll hear stories of people who claim they heard God. Today, you'll hear from Hubie Synn, an accountant who says he feels sick every time God talks to him. If you want to hear more God Out Loud stories, hit follow or subscribe now.
We were at a wedding, and then my wife wasn't feeling well. The people at the table thought she was pregnant, but we had no clue because she had never been pregnant before, so we didn't know. So then we found out later that she was pregnant, and that was our first child, Sarah. 17 months later, we had another one, a baby boy. His name is Daniel. God kept directing us to have more. My wife wasn't having it. She was like, I'll have 1, 2, that's it. And then she gave away all the furniture, all the baby stuff. And then she wanted another one, so we had the third one, which was Chrissy, and then we're like, we're done. And then the Lord's like, no, you're not done. Have another one. And my wife was not very happy about that.
Meet Hubie Synn, proud father of many children. Hubie is trained as an accountant, but he got tired of working for an accounting firm. So in between his third and fourth child, he joined a high-profile fashion company.
So the company was growing. They were doing really well. And I was the CFO of the company. Halle Berry, when she won her Academy Award, we made her dress. We dressed the president's daughters at the time, the Bushes. We got a call from Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mother. At that time, Destiny's Child, the band she used to be with the group, they were doing a tour, and they wanted us to make the clothes for the designers who designed it. I remember one of the highlights was when I met Oscar de la Renta in person. It was kind of like, wow, look at who I'm meeting.
If there was a game show called Name Drop, Hubie would have won. Halle Berry, Beyonce, Oscar de la Renta. Sounds like a guest list for the Oscars. For Hubie, it was Tuesday, and his frequent brushes with celebrity didn't stop there.
I did a ministry thing called Jammin' Against the Darkness, which has to do with NBA players. I had to fly out to Ohio to help coordinate it. And as I'm there, I have 2 cell phones. I have one that I'm speaking to the office, and I have the other one with a walkie-talkie that I'm running around putting the event together. And I'm kind of going back and forth, and it was a lot. I'm there, and the Lord is just ministering to me like, since you've joined this company, my time has gone from here to here.
Hubie is motioning with his hand, saying God's time has gone from a lot to a little.
But yet your work time and you have become from here to here.
A little to a lot.
What's more important in your life? So I thought about that on the ride home, on the plane ride home. And then I went to work because I was behind, so I had to go to work on a Saturday. The Lord is basically telling me the same thing. Your time went from here to here. My time went from here to here. What's more important to you? So then, I'm sitting there, I'm going throughout the day doing my work, whatever it was. And then the Lord's basically telling me, you need to quit your job.
To which Hubie auto replied,
that can't be God. I don't know where it came from. It can't be God.
Within a few hours, Hubie's initial resistance faded into a reflective discontent, and his thoughts of doubt began to morph into this.
I really need to quit. I need to get things in order. I need to quit. I need to put the way things are supposed to be, not the way they've become. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll quit my job then, and then I'll have more time. So, it seemed like a good idea. I'm going fine, and then I'm driving home, and I'm sitting here thinking, how am I going to tell my wife? I walked through the door, and my wife, we had a rule that let me sit down and eat, and then we talk, because then I get to unwind. Because if you hit me right when I walk through the door, sometimes I'm not in the mood, whatever it is. So I walked through the door and she goes, hi, honey, how you doing? And I went, okay. Because normally she wouldn't do that. And then she's like, how's your day? It's asking me all these questions. And, she processes by asking questions. But I'm sitting there thinking, why is she asking me all these questions and stuff like that? I just wanted to eat because I was trying to figure out a way to kind of tell her. So she's like, so anything new happened? And so she just keeps digging. So finally I said, well, I think the Lord is telling me that I need to quit my job because everything is just so crazy. Because it was crazy at work. It was crazy at home. Ministry, there was just no time. And she basically just looked at me and said, yeah, you need to quit.
With God's prompting and his wife's approval, Hubie tried to quit.
I went in to resign and they said I couldn't leave. The owner basically said, look, we still need you around because the company grew tremendously when you were here. We need somebody to help make those decisions and make the transition. So why don't you go back to being our accountant? Because I used to be their accountant at one time. So I said, okay, I'll go back to be your accountant. And I handpicked my successor. I trained him and we're still good friends and it's still a client.
When his company finally let him step down from being chief financial officer, things in his family began to change.
It was a very different time of life where I had free time because I never had free time before. I was always working. So, and during that time, I got to spend more time with God. I got to, spend more time praying, reading scripture, learning, doing Bible studies. So that kind of changed my life.
Along with all the praying and the studying, Hubie and his family got very involved in a church whose pastor claimed to give words of prophecy.
My wife was pregnant with our fourth child. One Sunday we were at church and they called us to the front and the pastor started prophesying over my wife about the baby, what the baby's going to be. The prophet of the house also came up to the front and kind of agreed with her. And then I think it was about a week or two later, we lost the baby. I was pretty stunned, angry, upset, and it really challenged me. I kind of felt like the rug got pulled out from me and, because I was doing so much for God to help him. I was doing these events. We were giving over and above tithing, and it's like, how could this happen to me? So I did what I had learned over the years was that I don't know what this is, but we're going to take a step back. I basically banned God from the house. We didn't go to church for a year. We would go out to eat on Sunday mornings for brunch, and we didn't pray. We didn't do anything. It was kind of like we were just there because I was just so mad and so angry, and my faith had really been hit really hard. Because if there's a God, then how could we lose this baby? And how could it happen to me? Now we had this prophecy, and then that didn't work out. So it's like all of these things were hitting all at the same time. I quit my job because I thought I hurt him. So did I make the biggest mistake of my life? There's all these things that I'm trying to process at the time.
Before it was cool, Hubie deconstructed his faith. His beliefs ran into the concrete wall of reality, and Hubie wasn't sure which of those beliefs would continue to stand. When his faith wavered, his church friends abandoned him, his wife, and his kids. Although the empty taste of betrayal and fake Christianity brought him and his family pain, its acidic flavor was not new.
I personally grew up in a household where my mother always watched the televangelists, and you'd always see the number on the bottom, and they always wanted money and stuff like that. And my mother was very literal because she didn't have really much of an education. So when they said, send us your money, you're going to be blessed, she would send them money, our dinner money, our lunch money. So one day I'm home. It's almost a year to the day that everything fell apart. I'm flipping the channels and I see, a televangelist on, but there's no number on the bottom of the screen. So I'm checking it out. My wife walks in the room, so I continued clicking. And then she goes out of the room, so I go back, and the guy is talking about the mercy seat. He's talking about all this stuff, and nowhere is he talking about money. And then he goes, okay, and we're going to sign off. I said, here it comes. There's a couple of minutes. So then they pan over to some other people and they are talking about books and stuff like that. And they're like, just give us your address and we'll send it to you. I was like, no money, no, postage and handling, which is where they usually get. There was none of that. It was just like, call the number, give us your address, and we will send you the books for free. And I was like, well, that's different.
Because the televangelist didn't ask for money, Hubie made a mental note to watch him the next week. When he did, the next sermon was about the gathering of the saints and how gathering with other Christians leads to encouragement.
So then Vicky walked into the room and she goes, what you watching? I went, oh, this guy. And she didn't say anything, but I'm sure she's probably thinking a lot of things. I go, I think that it might be time for us to go back.
Although he and his family went back to church, Hubie's hesitant cynicism held him back from sinking comfortably into the rhythm of church culture. Instead, he purposely restarted his faith journey on the back row of a megachurch.
The beauty of a megachurch is that if you're not ready to make a commitment, at least you can go when nobody bothers you. I sat in the back and so we stayed there for a little while, and then, we started to reconnect with people from our old church. So one of them started to open up a church because he got shunned also. So we started to attend that church. We go there, and then he's having prophetic people come in. When the prophetic people started going around the room, I'd stay way in the corner in the back. And they would just look at me and I went, I'm good. Just kind of that, if they invited me forward, which they didn't, thank God, I probably would have said no. But they just kind of went around, and that kind of went on for a little while. And then they would go, and then finally I got more comfortable that I wouldn't stay in the very corner. I'd just stay in my seat. So then they would go to this person here. They would skip over me, go to the next one and the next one. And then that happened for a while. That kind of messed with me too. So it's kind of like, is there something wrong with me? That type of thing. And then that kind of went on for a while. And then I was just kind of like, well, maybe I think I'm ready to kind of get through this, because the bitterness and the anger was still there. And so I was like, I think blaming God isn't the answer. So let me just kind of just open myself up to this. So then there was this lady that was there, and she looks at me and she just kind of gave me this funny look, kind of like she's staring at my chest, but she's looking through it. It was a weird type of look and feeling. Pointing to my chest, she goes, "There's greatness in you." And that was it. Every person that seemed to come that picked me out, they would do the same thing. They would look at me and point to my chest, and they would say the exact same words. That was the only thing I got for a long time. So I was like, I don't know what it means, but okay, whatever. So as time went on, my walk started to get back to where it was. And then I started to have these feelings, and I would just feel this unction or urge, kind of like a little push, or I would look at somebody and they would look very familiar, even though I don't know them. And I just kind of felt I kind of needed to go just sit down next to them or something. So I started doing that, and I would just start talking to them. And then all of a sudden it would just words would just come out. And then I would just kind of leave. But before I did that, I would look for the escape route, because I was like, if this goes wrong, I got to be prepared. I really didn't know what they were, but it was weird because it wasn't in church. It was outside of church. When it started, I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was just praying for people. But they would come back and they would say, well, everything I was praying for, you just answered. Or we've been really seeking God for this, and we really needed to hear it, and you just gave us the answer. Those type of things kept coming up, and people would say, are you an angel? And I would say, jokingly, I'd say, an angel? My last name is Synn.
Nobody has ever mistaken me for an angel. But for Hubie, it became a common occurrence. And there's one reason. Hubie's messages from God seem to be accurate. When we get back from this break, you'll hear specific stories of specific messages to specific people. A couple weeks ago, I went to a We the Kingdom concert. It might be my favorite concert of all time. I was shocked by how good it was. But I shouldn't have been, because I've worked with one of the band members, Andrew Bergthold. He's the best producer I've ever recorded with. He's a creative genius, but he's also super collaborative. He teams up with artists like me to make me sound way better. If you want a producer, DM Andrew on Instagram. His Instagram handle is Andrew L. Berg. This is how you spell it. AndrewLberg. Again, that's Andrew L. Berg. He's written hits with We Are Messengers, We the Kingdom, and many more. Also, he loves this podcast, and he surprised me one day by donating to help make season 2 happen. He's a good friend and an amazing producer. To prove it, here's a clip of just one of the songs he produced for me, Home for the Holidays.
Can't settle for a letter, can't settle for a phone. It ain't time to go to work, it's time to go back home. When good times get forgotten, get buried in the past, there's no day like a holiday to bring those good times back. December seems so cold, till I remember what's at the end of your road. We're going home for the holidays. We've seen the world and there's still no place like home for the holidays. So pack your bags, babe. We're going home. We're going home. We're going home.
When we left off with Hubie, his life resembled Monica from the late 90s TV series Touched by an Angel.
I am an angel, sent by God to help you.
Except Hubie never claimed to be an angel. He was just trying to obey.
I'm just praying for these people, and that's what's happening. I'm not thinking anything of it or anything. And then somebody said, well, you know, what you're doing is prophesying. And I went, I'm not prophesying. I'm not trained. They go, yeah, you're prophesying. When you're going to these people and you're telling them all this and the results are happening, you're prophesying to these people. And I went, no, you're wrong. So I go, I'm trying to look up the definition or whatever it is. And I got really scared because I was like, the one thing I wanted to stay away from, I'm doing.
Hubie and his wife had been hurt deeply by a false prophecy. And he didn't want to cause that pain for anybody else.
Because I'm a numbers guy, analytics guy, I'm sitting there thinking, what are the odds of me doing this consistently over a long period of time? And I'm hitting the mark on all of them.
As Hubie talked with more and more people, his experiences became more and more bizarre.
We were at Great Adventure. Six Flags Great Adventure, they call it up here. So I'm there, I'm in the bathroom. I'm washing my hands after I finished, and there's a guy next to me, and the Lord is like, that one. And I'm like, now? I'm on vacation, you know, because I kind of have this thing where it's kind of like I have my time, and then you can have your time, okay? But at that time, I was being broken that I'm a servant, and I'm on call all the time, which I didn't realize that. So he teaches me these crazy things as I'm going through life. So I'm sitting there looking at the guy, and I'm like, you know, and there's the big mirror in front where you can kind of just look at the guy too. And I was just kind of like, here now? So I'm washing my hands, and I just kind of lean over and I went, hey, by the way, and the guy just looks at me, and all of a sudden he throws up his hands. He falls on the floor and he starts yelling, praise God, hallelujah. Now it's a tile floor. There's other people in there. You're hearing it echo. You're hearing all kinds of things. I'm sitting there thinking, I got to get out of here. Somebody thinks I must have hit the guy. And I just took off because I was like, oh my God. I said, I'll never do it in the bathroom again. Because that's kind of, and the guy was just praising God, I guess, because he got an answer or something. But it was kind of like it just really hit the mark with him. And Vicky was like, what's going on in there? So let's just get out of here.
Before we get too far into this, Hubie's going to explain how he knows God wants him to give a message to another person.
Even now, I don't want to do it. When you don't want to do something and you feel like you're dragged, that's kind of my check. It's like, well, Lord, I'll do it to please you, but I don't really want to do it for myself or any other reason. So if you want me to do it, I'll do it, but I need to know it's you. So that was right around the time when I was praying and I was like, okay, I really need to know it's you, that my growth happened, my spiritual growth. Now, my stomach turns like you're literally sick. You ate something bad, and it just keeps spinning, going on and on and on until I'm really actually to throw up. When I tell them, okay, I'll do it, it stops immediately. That's not a good feeling, but it's kind of like I know that I'm supposed to do it. So until I get sick, I won't do it. Like my wife, she'll sit there and say, you need to speak to that guy. And I'm like, okay. And then she'll be like, well, what's going on? I said, I got to get sick first. Otherwise I won't do it. At the beginning, it happened all the time. It's not like I can go and say I want to prophesy. It's more like it just starts and it's kind of random. And at the beginning, it seemed like it was going every day. Time to get ill. And I was like, I understand you want me to do this, but I have my time. We all want to be used of God, right? But after you get used and used and used, you're kind of like, hey, wait a minute, that type of thing. So at the beginning, I couldn't go anywhere without it flaring up. Whether I went to a party, whether I went to a friend's house, whether I went to anywhere, it just seemed like it was always flaring up. And it was kind of like, can I have a day off? It took control of my life. And I felt like I couldn't do anything without this label. When you walk into a room and people, you have a reputation, half of them run to you and half run from you. It's kind of like, that's weird. And then everybody has an expectation of, you got a word for me, you got a word for me. So I had to learn the hard way of, no, I don't. But you're the guy who did this. And I go, but what does that have to do with you? Are you, and then people kind of try to play tricks on me. Are you saying God doesn't love me? Or I said, no, that's between you and him, nothing with me. Or God told me you have a word for me. I said, if you read the red parts in your Bible, that's God speaking, but mine doesn't work on demand.
Hubie was reluctant, to say the least. If he were given the choice, this is not how he chose to be known or recognized. But it kept happening, often at the most inopportune times.
Vicky and I went to a party. It was somebody's 30th birthday party or 40th birthday party. So they're looking at me, and by now I had started to get a reputation, a good one. And they go, the prophet is here, which I don't really like that name, but they were like, the prophet is here, prophet is here. Prophet Hubie, come up and pray for her. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm just here to enjoy myself. Well, I gotta get up. So Vicky's like, they're not going to stop. You need to go. So I go up, I grab the mic, and you literally see me roll my eyes like, oh, do I really have to do this? Then all of a sudden, it started to come out. She was blessed. I sit down and Vicky goes, don't do that anymore. I was like, why? She goes, they were recording it and they have you rolling your eyes.
Okay. So much like Hubie, I can imagine that some of you are rolling your eyes too. After all, most of this is vague. Hubie gets a feeling, he talks to someone, and they're blessed. And maybe they ask him if he's an angel or call him a prophet. It doesn't seem like your standard God out loud moment. Also, there's a problem with tracking his success rate. He doesn't record himself doing it. He just gives people a word from the Lord and moves on. He doesn't even remember what he says. Luckily though, other people do record him. Other people remember what he says, and actually, that's how I found out about Hubie. While working as a freelance writer for Charisma News in 2022, I heard a story from Steven Strang, the CEO of Charisma Media. He said Hubie gave a prophetic word to an NFL wide receiver. I had to know more.
I resigned from the CFO job at the fashion company. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I joined a financial firm, and one of their clients was David Tyree, who played for the New York Giants. But I'm a Jet fan, so it's kind of, I could care less.
Hubie's new boss at the financial firm took him to David Tyree's house. And if you've never heard of David Tyree, that's okay. Most people hadn't. When Hubie met David wasn't famous. In his first 4 seasons, he averaged 153.75 receiving yards per year. That's about 9.6 receiving yards per game. Famous NFL wide receivers typically average 80 to 100 receiving yards per game. He did make the Pro Bowl in 2005, but that was for special teams.
When he made the NFL, they used him as what they call a gunner. He's the guy who would run down and tackle the guy who caught the ball on the kickoffs or on the punts, that type of thing. So he wasn't known as a receiver, but he was kind of like the third string receiver.
Again, third string receivers and special teams guys are not typically well known. And on top of that, each NFL team holds 53 roster spots. That means in a league with 32 teams, there are 1,696 players. In other words, back when Hubie met him, David Tyree was not a name drop. He earned a lot of money, but even diehard football fans wouldn't have recognized him on the street. Back to Hubie in David Tyree's house.
So we went to his house, I met him, but I'm off to the side. It's just kind of like I'm just there. So then we come back to the office and I just start praying for the guy. The Lord starts waking me up at night, which I didn't like. It's kind of like you lie down, all of a sudden your eyes open and you're kind of like, really? He plays for the wrong team, all this stuff. And I was kind of like, So I started praying for the guy, and then I just kind of felt this urge that I need to call him. And I'm like, I can't do that, because if I call him, that's crossing the line. I'm the accountant, the job, which at that time we really needed it. So I'm like, I can't do that. And then the more that I said no, the more that the utterance or the pushing, the shoving, whatever it was like, you really need to do this. So, me being the accountant thinking worst case scenario, I was like, okay, let me grab the phone number and I'll do it on a Friday, because then I got the weekend if it blows up.
For the last few years, I've worked as a handyman. One of my clients plays in the NFL. Giving my NFL client a weird message from God would probably end our business relationship. For Hubie, the stakes were even higher. He was working for a financial advisor, and the more money a financial advisor manages for a client, the more money a financial advisor makes. David Tyree was a client with a lot of money to be managed, and Hubie needed to keep his job.
So Friday night came, I called him and it's ringing, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't have anything to worry about. He's not answering the phone. And a few rings later, he answered the phone. And he said, "This is David." And I froze. I didn't really know what to do. But he was like, "Hello, hello." And I was like, "Oh, this is Hubie." He's like, "Who?" I go, "Hubie, the accountant." He's like, "Oh, yeah." So he's like, "Yeah, what's up?" And then the prophecy just started to flow out. And so that went on for a little while. And then there was an eerie pause. Like he wasn't reacting, and it's over a phone. So I don't know how he's taking this. I don't know what he believes or anything, which was frightening.
After a few terrifying seconds, David finally responded. And this is what Hubie remembers him saying. Quote, "My wife and I were praying last night about some things, and we had a lot of questions. A lot of those things you just answered. You see, I play football, but what I really want is to share the gospel. I want a platform to share it with people. You said a lot of things, and one thing was that I would be known as a wide receiver, which is my dream. I'm known as a special teams player. I play the wide receiver position, but I'm not known for that. There was so much that you said that there was no way you could have known," unquote. David ended the conversation by saying, quote, "I would like to get to know you better. Thank you for calling me and for the word. We'll talk later," unquote. Now, this is a summary of what David remembers Hubie saying on that same phone call. Quote, "God's going to bring you out of obscurity into the spotlight and give you a platform, and your name will go before you. You'll be known as a wide receiver. I'm about to highlight your skills as a wide receiver. I know about your desire to share your faith, and I'm going to give you a platform to do that," unquote.
David really wanted a platform to share the gospel, but unless you're one of these big time players, your platform is kind of limited. And at the time I called him, he was injured. He wasn't even playing.
In the Giants' first game of the 2007 season against Dallas, 21 Giants players, including David, were already on the injured reserve list. He was injured with a fractured wrist. Also, the team lost 3 out of 4 of the first preseason games, as well as falling in their first 2 games to the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. When Hubie called David with a word from God, not only was David injured, the Giants looked like a bad team. Hardly the kind of team that would give David Tyree any sort of significant platform. But soon after Hubie's call to David, the Giants won their first game against the Washington Redskins.
The story of the day is this. The Giants came in having given up 80 points as a defense the first 2 weeks. 97 points in 2.5 games, including the first half today. They put together this tremendous second half. And who knows where this victory will lead the Giants.
Then, the next week, they beat the Eagles.
McNabb sacked by the Giants 12 times. Hugh Manura had 6, a new Giant record. They win 16-3, they're 2-2.
Then, they faced the New York Jets, Hubie's favorite team.
Incomplete, intended for Tyree, broken up by Antonio Pierce, and the Giants take over on downs, and that'll secure their 3rd win of the year.
The Giants just kept on winning. They extended their win streak to 6 games by beating the Atlanta Falcons, San Francisco 49ers, and Miami Dolphins. After 8 more games, they ended their regular season at 10 wins and 6 losses, with their last loss coming from the New England Patriots, whose 3-point win against the Giants completed their 18 wins and 0 losses perfect regular season. The Giants barely made the playoffs, but the New England Patriots seemed unstoppable. After all, there was only one other team, the 1972 Miami Dolphins, to pull off a perfect season, and they won the Super Bowl. Nobody even expected the Giants to win their first playoff game against the Bucs.
I'm going with the Bucks. I agree with you, so I'm going to go with the Bucks.
Nobody expected the Giants to win their second playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys.
Let's begin with you, Howie. Frank is taking the Cowboys. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going with the Cowboys. Dallas.
All right, Jimmy?
They copied off of me. I'm taking Dallas.
And not a whole lot of people expected the Giants to win the NFC Championship over the Green Bay Packers either.
So who wins the game? What do you think? You're picking the Packers by how many?
I am. I'm picking the Packers right now, and I don't think it's going to be close.
Okay.
I think what's going on here is the Giants have done an outstanding job going on the road, playing great football. But when you go up to Green Bay, it's just a different place. When you walk on the football field, you know all the history of that stadium. Then Brett Favre standing there and looking at you, looking down at that team. Just outstanding job. I think the Green Bay Packers will go on to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
As the Giants plowed through their competition in the playoffs, Hubie said he sensed that something big was about to happen for David. And he was holding on to that because even though the Giants were winning, David Tyree still didn't have a platform, and he was having his worst season ever.
So he got on the field and he had the worst season of his life. He hardly caught the ball. As they made their run through the playoffs, his mother had passed. It was just a horrible time for him. The day before the Super Bowl, he had the worst practice ever. He dropped every single ball that was thrown at him in practice.
When the Giants made Super Bowl 42, the New England Patriots were there to meet them with the best quarterback ever, Tom Brady. In a weird twist, the game was compared to the biblical David and Goliath story, except the Giants were considered David and the Patriots were considered Goliath.
So then he said that he just held on to what I said, and God sent some other people to kind of reaffirm it.
The night before Super Bowl 42, Hubie stayed up praying for David. And one person around David said God showed them a vision of spiritual glue on David's hands and was convinced God would give David the big play. On Super Bowl Sunday, Hubie and his wife were pumped.
We had this jumping in our chest we've never felt before.
Like many Americans, Hubie and his wife sat down to watch, except they were looking for a breakout game for David. But David didn't touch the ball once in the first quarter. At the end of the first quarter, the New York Giants led 3-0, but New England scored a touchdown within the first minute of the second quarter, giving them a 7-3 lead. Early in the second quarter, Tyree caught a pass for 5 yards, but Hubie knew that wasn't the platform-making catch. In a defensive back and forth defined by interceptions, punts, and fumbles, neither team scored again until 3 minutes and 54 seconds into the fourth quarter.
Play action. Over the middle. Touchdown Giants. David Tyree.
As 97.5 million people watched, David pointed up, then stared at the camera and said, "It's all God. It's all God, baby. He did it."
And we're watching it and we're kind of like, no, that's not really it.
In a mostly defensive game, his touchdown was a huge play. It gave the Giants a 10-7 lead over the New England Patriots, but Hubie wasn't satisfied. He kept watching, expecting something bigger. With 2 minutes and 42 seconds left in the game, this happened.
Brady throws. Moss. Touchdown. A methodical drive put together by the game's best. Tom Brady. Patriots lead by 4.
Tom Brady completed a touchdown pass for the Patriots to make it 14-10. Eli Manning and the Giants took over with 2 minutes and 39 seconds to go in the game on the 16-yard line, which means the Giants had to drive 84 yards to win the game with a touchdown.
Well, every quarterback dreams of being in this position. The Super Bowl on the line, down 4 points, trying to take your team down and win the game.
Manning's first pass gave the Giants a first down at the 28-yard line. His second and third passes were incomplete. His fourth pass was a 9-yard pass, and they were able to convert a 4th down and 1 to a first down. Manning almost fumbled it on the very next play while gaining 5 yards in the process. Then Manning followed up the near fumble with a throw over Tyree's head to the defender, who almost picked it off, but dropped it. They were at 3rd and 5, and Tyree was still in the game. The ball was snapped. 2 defenders grabbed Eli Manning's jersey to tackle him. And somehow...
Pressure from Thomas off the edge. Eli Manning stays on his feet. Airs it out down the field.
When Eli went back to throw the pass, I yelled, "It's to David." Now, I didn't really know, but I just yelled, "It's for David."
It is caught by Tyree.
Then when he made the catch, we were all just jumping around like, that's it. That's what God wanted to do. That's what he wanted to do.
Oh, my God. This ball's thrown, and Tyree just goes up for it like a basketball player. Harrison trying to knock it down. And Eli, man, I don't know how he got out of there. I thought he was on the ground, and then he came out of the pile and just slings it. That's a great catch by David Tyree.
Pressing it against his helmet as he goes to the ground and not dropping it is David Tyree, who has the only touchdown tonight for the Giants.
Well, Rodney Harrison was in position behind Tyree, and when the ball came out, it looked like it was going to be overthrown and that Rodney Harrison was going to have an easy interception. And David Tyree went up and somehow was able to make the catch.
In slow motion, Eli Manning threw a desperate pass, which Tyree had to jump as high as he could to even reach. Rodney Harrison, a Hall of Fame defender, jumps up with him to bat the pass down. When David loses his left hand's grip on the ball, he presses the ball against his helmet, regains control with both hands by keeping the ball pressed against his helmet while falling over a defender's body. And near the end of the catch, keeps the ball off the ground while the defender is putting constant pressure on his arm. When Hubie saw it, he yelled, "That's it!" When David's marketing guy watched it on TV in a hotel room, he dropped to his knees and gave his life to Christ. David's catch is known as the helmet catch. Super Bowl 42 is listed on the official NFL's YouTube page as the helmet catch Super Bowl. It's considered by some the greatest catch in Super Bowl history, probably because it led to a touchdown by his teammate, Plaxico Burress, which led to this.
Congratulations to the New York Giants organization. It couldn't have gotten any better. Your 3rd world championship, the New York Giants are once again world champs.
Tyree's helmet catch propelled the Giants to win Super Bowl 42 and beat the greatest quarterback ever, Tom Brady, and maybe the greatest team ever. Well, maybe the 2nd greatest team ever, the almost undefeated New England Patriots.
I remember him calling me after the Super Bowl at like 6 in the morning, and he is just weeping on the phone. I was still sleeping, so I went to voicemail. He was weeping, and he's like, "Can you believe what God did?"
David Tyree's life changed instantly. He went from being a national nobody lost in a sea of 1,696 helmets to being one of the most famous wide receivers in the whole country. David Tyree was now a credible name drop. He made one of the greatest Super Bowl plays of all time in front of a record audience of 97.5 million people. He was featured in thousands of newspapers, twice graced the cover of Sports Illustrated, appeared in hundreds of TV and radio interviews, and he quickly became nationally recognized as a wide receiver. And even though he received lots of press, here's the unique thing.
He wasn't taking any credit for it. He was just telling everybody about it, and, how God did it.
Here's David talking with Tony Cox of NPR. You'll hear Tony first.
Man, it was a great catch, and it was something I'm sure you will remember for the rest of your career. Rodney Harrison said you will never make that catch again in 10,000 tries.
Yeah, I hope his heart was right. I'll be the first one to agree, but I hope his heart was right when he was saying it because I'm not taking credit for the catch. I'm giving it all to God.
If you Google any David Tyree interview, he always gives God the credit for the catch. If you were to call him during that time and get his voicemail, you would have heard this message. Quote, "You've reached the voicemail of David Tyree, and I know that you probably saw the catch, but what you didn't see is that God did it. Let's give him the glory." Unquote. Hubie's the same way. He didn't want the credit for giving David a prophetic word. He wanted God to get the glory.
One thing that was interesting was during that whole time, David said, "I'm going to tell everybody," and I went, "No, don't tell anybody." He was very honorable. He started telling people the story, but he would tell them, a friend told me.
There was words at the beginning of the season, prophetic, however you want to call them, that where God sees your desire as a special teams player. The platform you have right now isn't big enough. He's going to make your name great as a wide receiver. Somebody shares that with me in September.
So he kind of kept my name out of it until, he started to write the book. Then he put my name in it, which I wasn't happy about. I didn't know he was going to, and we were talking, and I got kind of chastised by a couple of friends of mine, and they were like, you have to give him your name. I went, no. I said, you do it in secret. No. I'm trying to challenge everybody with scripture. Do it in secret, your reward. And they were like, that has to do with tithing and giving. It's got nothing to do with showing the works of God. And so I just kind of said, I don't, because I figured that would open up the door that people come looking for me. They come knocking at my door, and I don't want any of that. I'm a private, I'm an accountant. That's my personality. So finally I reached the point where so many people were really, I guess, giving me the business, as they say. So I was like, okay. So I called David and I said, okay, you can use my name. And he's like, don't worry about it, brother. I already did it. I was very concerned when the book came out. My wife bought it at Barnes & Noble, came home and read through it right away. And I was like, I'm on this little paragraph. It's not a big deal. It's not, I got nothing to worry about. And then Charisma did a whole cover story on him, Charisma magazine at that time, which had a lot of readership. And they took one page from the book, the page I was on. And I went, oh my gosh, what is going on? And I was scared to leave the house, and my life started to change, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was kind of like the gift was being highlighted, and I couldn't stop it, and I couldn't do anything. I even called the publisher, and I'm like, you can't do this. You can't do this. And they said, well, you signed the release, so we can do that.
David's book, More Than Just the Catch, was published by Charisma in September 2008. His catch won the ESPY Award for the Play of the Year and was even parodied in a skit with pop star Justin Timberlake. The helmet catch definitely gave David the platform and the recognition as a wide receiver. But here's the thing. The helmet catch is the last catch David ever made in the NFL. Nobody remembers, but the very next play, Eli Manning throws it to him and he drops it. It turns out that last drop would be his last shot to catch a football on an NFL field.
I'm in the height of opportunity, never had these kinds of opportunities before. And maybe about a month after the Super Bowl, I'm sitting down, I go pick up my lotion, I'm already back in the gym, I'm already trying to make the necessary decisions to build some momentum, and my knee locks up. It wasn't an on-field injury, it was just the beginning of the wear and tear and decline.
That offseason knee injury morphed into other injuries. In 2008, he was injured all season and couldn't play for the Giants, and he was cut from the team early in September 2009. He signed with the Baltimore Ravens 1 month later, but they only used him for special teams, not as a wide receiver. Everything Hubie said would happen to David happened, but after Hubie's prophetic word was fulfilled, David Tyree's NFL career essentially ended. David and Hubie are still friends. David has 7 kids, Hubie has 5. David is an entrepreneur, Hubie's still David's accountant. And because of the helmet catch, David received the platform and the recognition that he wanted. Hubie, on the other hand, received a platform and recognition that he never wanted.
When David made the catch, people would come up and ask him for an autograph, and he would just give them an autograph and take a picture. And I remember one time we were talking, and I was like, yeah, you got it easy. He goes, what do you mean I got it easy? I said, I'm no way on the level as you, first of all. But they ask you for an autograph, you just sign it. Me, they want me to pray for them. That's a whole different thing. That's pressure.
David hit the peak of his fame when he made the helmet catch. For Hubie, David's catch was just the beginning. He was about to have another strange encounter that would change his life forever.
My sister was very sick, my older sister. She had stomach cancer. We were estranged for a long time. And then she called me one day out of the blue and she's like, I'm dying. And I went, oh. So she's like, can you come see me? And I was like, I got to do it. She's not doing well.
To hear what happens when Hubie flies to see his sister, you'll have to wait until the next episode. Unless you know the story, all of your guesses are wrong. I'm 99% sure of it. Here's how I know. When Hubie had his dream job as a CFO of a fashion company, he would have never expected to quit. When he received a false prophecy from his former pastor, he would have never expected to start giving people prophetic words. And when he met an injured special teams player from the Giants, he would have never expected to predict God would make this player known as a wide receiver. Hubie's expectations are continually shattered, and when you listen to the next episode, yours will be too.
I never thought I would be in the position of, I guess, people seeking me out to get a word from God, because I didn't think I ever lived a really righteous life. I didn't do the Jesuit vow or any of that stuff, so it's kind of like, who am I? You know, I'm just an accountant.
Thanks for listening. If you like this story, hit follow or subscribe now. Also, please give our show a 5-star review on your podcast app. Doing so helps other people find it. And if you've heard a story you want to share with me, go to godoutloud.com, scroll to the bottom, and hit record. The theme song is written by me, Rob Vischer, and produced by my fellow Detroit Lions fan, Joe Fry. Thanks to Hubie Synn for your time, interview, and guitar strings. And thanks to Steven Strang of Charisma Media for connecting us. If you love this show, show us some love and text this episode's link to your friends. Thanks again for listening to... If you want to hear more stories of people who claim they heard God, go to godoutloud.com/donate. It takes time to interview, edit, and create this podcast. 80 hours per episode at least. And I love it. But here's the thing. I've been a handyman and a podcast host. I bet you can guess what I like the most. I like fixing things. It's okay for now, but I'd rather make God out loud. If you send some cash to me, I can't promise you prosperity. I do need at least 20 G to start making season 3. If you want to help me create, go to godoutloud.com/donate. If you want to help me create, go to godoutloud.com/donate. If you're loving God Out Loud, just do it right now. For more episodes that'll make it go wow. We're raising $20,000 at least to make season 3. We've already raised about $2,775, or 13% of it. Once we hit the goal of 20 G's, I'll start tracking down more stories, interviewing guests, and creating more episodes. Thanks again for listening, y'all.
I was just kind of praying, and he just kind of told me, he was telling me that you're going to have another child. And I went, I'm not going to tell her, because she says we're done, and she's not prepared to have another child. And then the Lord told me that we were going to have another one after the 4th child. And she just looked at me and she goes, don't even think about it. So I guess I had a look or something, and I was like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, I am not having another child. She made a scrapbook that said our family is complete with the 4 kids, and she took pictures and all that because she wasn't having it. And I said, fine, we won't have any more. I'll go get the operation. We won't have any more. But I kind of laid the guilt trip on her. I said, okay, I'll do it. But when we die and go to heaven, I'm going to put it squarely on you. It's on your head, not mine, because I'm willing, you're not. And then she couldn't sleep, and she got irritable, restless anxiety. And then she started listening to a Hillsong song, Exceeding Joy, which basically talks about the angel came to Mary, and she just said yes. So she got kind of convicted with that. So she's like, okay, we'll have the last one. And so we had the last one, named him Michael. And that was it. 5 and done.
Hey there, I'm Paul Hastings, the host of Compelled. And just like the podcast that you just finished listening to, my show is part of the Proclaim Podcast Network. On every episode of Compelled, we use gripping, immersive storytelling to bring Christian testimonies to life. One of my favorite stories is episode 31 with Virginia Prodan. Virginia was a small, petite attorney in communist Romania during the 1980s, defending Christians in court. Her success angered the Romanian dictator, and he vowed that she would pay. One evening, Virginia was alone at her office when a man entered the room, closed the door, and pulled out a gun. He barked, "Shut up, sit down, I'm here to kill you." Virginia was face to face with a trained assassin. What happened next? Well, there's only one way to find out. Virginia's entire story is episode 31, entitled "He Came to Kill Me." Just search for Compelled on your podcast app or visit compelledpodcast.com. Again, that's compelledpodcast.com.